All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to Talkin Investing. Hope everybody had a great week. You're here with Tom and George. We got a lot to go through. There was some massive news in the Bitcoin mining / AI data center stocks that we go through. There's something else going on in the stock market altogether. And if you saw the thumbnail or read the description, I basically said that the stock market has changed and it's not going away. So I want to talk about that. There's been We haven't talked about it, and I feel like we needed to talk about it. The stock market has changed, in my opinion, forever, and everybody's got to adjust their investment plan to what the new normal is. So we'll see if you guys agree with me or disagree with me. George, what's happening?
It's crazy to hear you talk like that. I'm scared now. It's changed forever?
I want somebody to drop in the chat. Can you see us and hear us? Because the stream did start, but I see people saying the stream hasn't started.
No, it's just how many $1 trillion companies are there going to be, Tom? That's my question.
I want to have that talk, but I want to make sure people hear us first. Because so far nobody has said that they can hear us. Alexander said, we can hear you. Thank you very much. Video and audio. Okay. Sorry. There was a couple of people saying they couldn't hear us. Call technical support. So, all right. So ask your question again, George.
How many $1 trillion companies are there going to be? And when does this end? The crazy run that we're on.
So both of those questions go to the heart of what's going on. And I'm going to show some historical data, and I think the number of $1 trillion companies it's already grown significantly. I think it will double in the next 1 year, sooner probably, and continue to go from there. And that's a part of what I'm talking about. There's no word for these companies, right? We used to have mega cap companies, but you're going to see when I show you the historical value of things, these are something beyond mega cap companies. And they're not going away. There's not less of them. There's by far more of them. And right now, as we speak, under our feet is a gigantic shift. And I can tell you, I bought 2 or 3 stocks within the last 20 days. And I have been waiting for a pullback, and all of those stocks have more than doubled. They've gone up every single day since then, and the market caps are out of control, and I don't think they're anywhere near done. So I missed a lot of I did not want a dollar cost average up, but now I'm going to dollar cost average up at even a higher number, because waiting for typically I like to dollar cost average in, and I like to buy on the dip. And we've had years of buying the dip because that's all there was. At the moment, the market is repricing, and it had some stuff priced horribly wrong. I talked about it to the members and went through my case, and I said, I think these things are priced wildly incorrectly. They're priced as yesterday's companies, not tomorrow's companies. And the CEO of Apple came out and said something that was a game changer, and since then, it's pretty much been on. So we're gonna see what you guys think, and we're gonna talk about what happened with the Bitcoin mining companies, the data center companies, because there were a few of them that had gigantic news this week. One of them, IREN, had 5 press releases this week, and the market needs to digest it. I will tell you, spoiler alert, we're going to talk about this in detail later, but I think the market has massively misunderstood what's going on with IREN, and it is wildly mispriced, in my opinion. And sorry, Sour Melon Gaming, thank you for the super chat. Sour Melon Gaming said, war is back on the menu with a side of, the virus. Yeah, we got viruses. We had a little tit for tat, I would say, with the war. I think, everybody's still saying we're in a ceasefire, but there was an incident. I see somebody saying Tom is overdosing on greed. If you think so, you think so. I will go through exactly what I'm talking about and what I'm seeing. And I mean, the numbers are the numbers. And I always like to tell people, like, these aren't my numbers. They're just the numbers. So you guys, I'm going to tell you the numbers, and you can decide they mean whatever you think they mean. I will tell you what I think they mean. And I think some stuff is wildly mispriced. And I regret, you can't, I regret, but you should not regret. Some of the things I opened positions in, now I'm going, I wish I had tripled that position. I try to be consistent and diligent and not go overboard, not FOMO in. But this happens to be one of those times where, I bought a stock that was up 500%. And I thought, let me be slow because it's probably going to have a pullback. But instead, it's doubled since then, after it was already up 500%. That's just what's happening right now. And we're not done repricing certain things because the market has changed, the economy has changed, and what's going on now, something's going on right now that's bigger than anything that's ever happened before. I'm not saying and I'm talking about AI. Let's not be mystical about it. First, do us a favor, if you could please smash the like button. Let's get this stream out to people in real time here. And we're also going for 100 likes, which we have failed to get for, 5 or 6 or 7 streams in a row. Let's get there. We got super close once. Let's get there.
Tom.
Yes.
Remember, I said this would be the tale of two halves. And I think it sounds like you're a lot like me. We didn't really even talk about this. I have so much excitement coming. I just feel it. I told you about how many different projects are going on here in Georgia. There's just projects all over the place, and there's so much getting ready to explode. You can feel it. In the good.
I feel the same way, and I know. Listen, there's a lot of stuff going on that from the outside of the market that's having impact. But I will tell you, the market seems to be moving on. While the world needs to straighten out some geopolitical situations, the market has decided, I'm not worried about it. And it's moved on. We hit the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ hit another new all-time high again today. So for all the hand-wringing and all of the gloom and doom and, World War III talk, all we do is hit an all-time new high, usually 3 days a week. Lately, we've been hitting an all-time new high. I mean, this is a monster run that's happening right now. I don't know when it'll end, but I know for certain stocks, I'm going to talk about a stock picker's market versus the entire marketplace, because this is a part of what I think is changing in the market. Right? The old school money manager, wealth money management, I'm going to get you diversified into some stocks and some bonds and the S&P 500 and some non-taxable stuff. Those people are going to get smoked in this market. I believe you have to find the right stocks, or at least the right sectors, because there's a lot of ETFs. So the right industries or clumps of companies where there's an ETF around it, if not specifically selecting stocks, because some things are going to continue to go ballistic. And a lot of the market is getting left behind. And some things just haven't had their turn yet. And I'll talk about a few of those later. I think there's some things I'm buying that are going down. And I think, which is fine, because I like to, that's what I was hoping the other ones would do. I would like to accumulate them for 6 months and then sell them 1 or 2 years later after they've done their thing. But, everything's moving. We're living at hyper speed right now, and it seems like everything is moving at hyper speed.
The other side of the equation, Tom, is that some people feel that everything's coming apart. And I believe that's designed that you feel that way right now. And I think once we have Kevin in there, I'm already on first names with the guy.
First name basis.
Yeah. I think once we have Kevin in there, I would almost want an emergency rate cut.
All you're going to hear right now, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wasn't going to talk too much about the Fed. We have so much else going on, but we are going to get a new Fed chair. And here's what all you have to do is watch YouTube or watch CNBC or any of the other financial channels, and they're all saying, well, every single time we get a new Fed chair, the market likes to test the Fed.
Yeah, the crash.
It's like,
yep.
Test what? That's first of all, we only get a new Fed chair very infrequently, right? So you're talking about a handful of 5 or 6 people. So to try to say there's some kind of like unbreakable trend, and the bottom line is we're lowering interest rates, and it's going to be good. So for those of you who don't want that or don't like it, it's happening. I see Sour Melon Gaming say no 2026 rate cuts, Tom. I'm just telling you. Listen, I'm right here in the present with you guys, so I don't know the future, but I will be stunned if we don't have multiple rate cuts in 2026. What is going on right now is that's the only disaster. They literally think this guy's going to come in and do rate hikes. It's delusional. It's not happening.
There is no doubt in my mind that we're going to see rate cuts, because we haven't talked about this, but the thing that used to grow the economy was, everyone, real estate.
Anybody?
Yeah. And real estate right now is, I would say, pull out the paddles. It's on life support.
Right. So real estate is local, and, I know we have people from all around the world, so you can drop in the chat how real estate's doing in your neighborhood, wherever that happens to be on the globe. But I will tell you what George is saying. In the United States, real estate is bad. It's been bad. And if they don't lower rates, it has no chance of recovering. And it is the number one amount of dollars spent by far. And, if construction is going to be dead, then that's going to be a big problem. And that's not even the main reason we're going to lower interest rates. That's a fringe benefit, massive side effect that's positive.
You don't think that's the main reason? Oh, I thought that was the main reason. Is it about debt, interest that we have to pay?
Yeah, it's absolutely about what will be by the end of the year, $40-something trillion of interest. We now pay more, the United States, I say we because I live in the United States. Now, we pay more in interest expense than we do in anything else, right? We have the largest defense budget in the world, but we spend more money on interest. And you know what we get in return for that money we spend on interest? Nothing. It's sunk cost. We get nothing in return. Why are we paying so much interest? Because the Fed artificially raised the interest rates to a place that's pure stupidity. Way after they should have, right? When they needed to raise them, we desperately needed rates raised, but inflation is transitory. Everybody's good. It's all going to go away and disappear like magic. That was silly. That was nonsense. I said it at the time, so I'm not rewriting history. Like, I've been pounding the table on this Fed for 4 or 5 years now. They just keep getting it wrong. And I got nothing against Jerome Powell. He might be the smartest guy on the planet and the nicest guy in the world. but he stinks at his job, in my opinion. And it's not helping. Now, they've started the quantitative easing. We're already seeing the effects of that, and that's going to go. That's going to continue. You know, and then I've heard a lot of people say, oh, this guy doesn't believe in quantitative easing. He's going to turn that off. Not likely.
I watched the thing with the new attorney general. Have you seen anything with him?
No. What's going on?
Well, he was talking about the executive branch and how they're responsible. You know, Trump's the chief law enforcement officer. And he goes, this whole separation of the attorney general and the executive branch is a myth. And he goes, hey, what about the previous administration, what they did?
Well, what was his name? He literally stood there with Obama and said, don't worry, in a press conference, don't worry, I got your back.
Yeah.
So, but that's nothing new. That is how that, you're right. And he's right. That's how that works. And, you know, that doesn't mean there should be bias or that they should be ignoring, you know, people breaking laws and that kind of stuff. But I mean, let's face reality. That's how it works.
I'm going to tell you something. Before July 1st, 0.5% cut.
You think a quick emergency rate cut's coming?
Before July 1st.
I won't be surprised. I don't know when. All I know is that if there's not multiple rate cuts, and I think it was Katie asking me, do I still think there'll be 4 rate cuts or 1 full basis point, a percentage point? I don't know. So at the beginning of this year, I thought there would be 4 rate cuts, 3 at the worst, 4. So I'm 50-50 on that now because Jerome Powell and the masses have gotten so, you guys are being fed so much misinformation, in my opinion. And I don't like to say this stuff because then you sound like a conspiracy theorist and all that. But we are, the misinformation going on, and a lot of it's disinformation. It is structurally done so that you think one thing so that big money can make another. And I know, I guarantee you some percentage of you are thinking, there's a conspiracy theory. Put your tinfoil hats on, guys. But this is how I watched an interview with Jim Cramer, and I know everybody will have mixed opinions on Jim Cramer. And I don't really watch his show anymore, but I have in the past. I don't really have strong feelings about him either way, but he was a hedge fund manager at Goldman Sachs, and he basically said, this is what I did. It's market manipulation. He explained exactly how he did it. He said, you need at least $10 million to do this. But as a hedge fund, I had access to drastically more than that. He said, and I would manipulate the market. And honestly, if anybody in my firm wasn't doing that, I would fire them. It's not illegal. And if you're not doing it, you're doing a bad job. So don't think that that's not happening. It's a part of it's not illegal. It's just a part of what happens as an investor. You need to understand, is the movement in my stock about the fundamentals, and is it long-term structural movement, or is it just price fluctuation because, somebody wanted to short this on the way down and run it back up? That happens every day, thousands of times. And again, it's not about complaining about it. It's just about understanding. Like when you see one of your stocks have a great, who was it this week? Their earnings was excellent and their stock got wrecked. And every earnings season, you'll find 10 of those where you scratch your head and go, man, why'd that thing get wrecked? That was really good earnings. They beat on revenue, they beat on net income, they raised their forecast. Like, what was everybody hoping for? But the reality is sometimes the stock is overrun on purpose going into earnings so that they can short a good earnings report. And then it goes down and then you panic and you go, well, man, if that's not good enough, nothing's good enough. I better sell my shares. And then they buy your shares. There's 10,000 different ways they do this. And you guys know, I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. I'm going to do a poll, though. Let's see if people think I got my tinfoil hat on. Sorry, just typing real quick. And so I'm just going to make this yes. Oh, I guess. Can't go yes or no based on the way I framed that. All right, quick poll. Why didn't that go? There we go. So, am I talking conspiracy, or do you guys agree that manipulation happens in the market? Who thinks I need a rubber room here?
Well, I mean, that's a side point.
Well, yeah, true. That's a different question. We'll do that poll later. Do us a favor, smash the like button. How many likes? Do you know how many likes we have, George? What's happening?
It is 15. Let me see. Sometimes I got to update it.
Wait for
We're
it.
at 40. We're getting there, Tom.
All right, 40 likes. There's 90 people. Do us a favor. Come on over, smash the like button. Because we got big, as always, this was a wild week. And I really feel like yesterday and today were the so-so days. But Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday were off the charts. In fact, I got to sidetrack myself and find something real quick because I forgot to bring it up. So, it was a little bit less exciting of an end of the week, but this was a hugely exciting week. All right, I got that for later. You know what? Forget later. How about now? This was Wednesday. So I just want to talk about Wednesday, right? This is our group of stocks. Riot. Okay, this is on a day Bitcoin was up 0.19%. So Bitcoin unchanged. Riot up 16.5%. BitDR up 21%. Oh, that's great. HUT up 35%. Keel, aka formerly known as Bitfarms, up 16.7%. By the way, IREN up 11%, which actually, because they're so much bigger in market cap, that was the biggest move on the day. And Core Scientific up 11%. Yeah, CIFR struggled a little bit. There was some oddballs in here, but these are monster moves. So congratulations to anybody who was in any of these stocks. You had a very good Wednesday, and really overall, we're going to look a very good week if you were in these stocks. Now, there was some stocks that hit, some stocks that missed. I do think these things are going to take turns. You know, everybody's not going to get the exact same movement all at once because there's a lot of differences between all of these companies. But there was specific news on HUT. That's why it moved. Riot had some news. This is my $5 call. When Bitfarms was trading in the $1.75 range, I felt confident, and we talked about this over and over and over, that once April 1st hit and they changed their domicile to the United States, I felt they would run to $5. Well, April 1st was 1 month and 1 week ago, and they're already over $4. This is a stock 3 months ago. The argument was, when are they going to do a reverse stock split because they're going to zero? So that changing of, and it's not the only thing they did. They changed their entire business model. They had what I thought was a good conference call. They've made some good deal flow on one side. They don't have the deal flow from the other side yet, meaning they don't have customers in their high performance computing. But I do think that's coming. But it's been a solid story, and so my concept on this was it's going to run to 5, and then if it can hold 5, and I think it's a 30, 60, 90-day thing, most institutional money will not invest in a stock under $5. A lot of it, I won't say a lot, it used to be a lot, but much of it isn't even allowed to invest in something under $5. But a lot of it, it's just such an old rule of thumb that they still follow that. So once you get to $5, however, it's not flipping a switch. It's not like, oh, you know, everybody got a memo in their email today that Keel hit $5. No, they want to see it get to $5. They want to see it stay at $5 and create a strong base there. When that happens, and it could be 30, 60, 90 days, then I think it takes a shot at running if it can do that. If it fails to do that, and the reason it would fail is, you know, it's got some benchmarks on what they said they were going to do. If they fail to meet their benchmarks, all bets are off. But if they can stay on track and they can keep steady at 5, then I think it runs to 10. And those are more just almost technical runs. So, you know, because of and I definitely don't underestimate the fact they are no longer a Bitcoin mining company. They have said, we're decommissioning all of our Bitcoin miners and we have nothing to do. You're not going to hear them talk about Bitcoin ever again, other than eventually in a footnote, they're going to have to say, you know, there's a dissolution of a segment of business. They're 100% out of Bitcoin. But that's it. They're not the only ones. Several of these companies are out. We're going to go through IREN. They are out. They're out. They put out 5 press releases this week. We'll glance at a few of them and spend some more time on a couple of the more important ones. And one of the things they said is, we're done. They took a huge hit for decommissioning Bitcoin mining machines. They've got and Bitcoin mining data center infrastructure is not identical to high performance computing data infrastructure. So there's some money to get from here to there. So financially, they took a little bit of a hit on that, but they did say they expect, I think they said by the end of 2027, they expect to be 100% out of Bitcoin mining. And they've already decommissioned a lot of machines. So that's kind of the trend that's going on. And yes, Alim is saying Keel reports next week. We're going to get some more reports next week. And I'll talk about the ones we got this week, but I'm going to give you my overview. I'm not looking that much at revenue, gross profit. Those numbers, for a lot of these companies, those numbers really mean almost absolutely nothing in the quarter that they're releasing right now. So I think a lot of people are making a big mistake and they're saying, wow, this company missed on revenue, they missed on gross profit, they missed on net income, and what's going on here? Like, they missed big, but there's a reason that they did, and these businesses are changing. Keel's gonna miss on top line and bottom line. I can just tell you right now. But they're decommissioning Bitcoin mining machines. They're winding their way out of mining Bitcoin. So we know, everybody already knows, they're going to miss what the market targeted. And revenue's going to go down, and net income's going to go down. And oh, by the way, since Bitcoin was down at that time, for whatever Bitcoin they held, they're going to take even another markdown for that. So that's what's going on in these financial statements. The investor, the institutions know this when they look, but they'll push the narrative, but they won't say it. They'll push the narrative. Whoa, IREN missed by a mile. That was a horrendous F, right? Income statement was an F. What's going on over there? Well, we're going to show you what's going on over there, because, like I said, they put out 5 press releases. See somebody saying, go ahead, George.
Oh, when Anthropic and ChatGPT go public, do you think either one of them will go to $1 trillion? And do you think they help IREN, Wolf, HUD, Keel?
So I think that we are set in the next 12 months to have the 3 biggest IPOs in history, and they'll be the biggest by far. The biggest of which will be SpaceX. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later, because I think it's not too early to start. I'm not investing, right? I'm not trying to figure out how to become an early investor. I'm not going to buy SpaceX on IPO day. I've never bought anything on IPO day. But what I have done is tried to look upstream from them and say, okay, who do they buy from? Who's their suppliers? And, you can start investing now in those. And some of those have already started to run. And I think they'll run harder. But yeah, we're going to have 3. That IPO could easily be $2 trillion when it happens. They're talking about 1.5 to 1.75 trillion, but if they're talking about that now and it's not going to happen for 6 months or a year, I'd be surprised if it wasn't a $2 trillion IPO. And I think both of the other ones stand a very legitimate shot of being $1 trillion IPOs. I mean, that makes them one of the biggest companies in the world. So we've never had a $1 trillion IPO before, because until recently, we never even had a $1 trillion company. Now we have a $5 trillion company. Sourmelon Gaming said, nothing's changed for Keel. All management's done is talk a big game. They still have no money and no clients. I have more confidence in Keel than that. I will say, Sourmelon, I do plan on dollar cost averaging out of a lot of my Keel position if things go the way I just described them. From $5 to $10, I will at least cut my position in half. And I need to make room, because I have a lot of other things I want to buy, and for so long I've been buying the dip on these companies. So I stopped a couple of months ago. I told everybody, I'm not buying the dip on any of these companies that you're seeing on this screen right now. I don't care. The exception to that would be, if for some irrational reason they were all of a sudden they went down 90% or something. But within reason, I am done buying all these stocks. There are other stocks, and I missed, for the most part. I'm going to get a little taste of it, and I still think I should be investing right now. But the run that the chip stocks are having is one of, if not the greatest, by market cap. It's the greatest run any 6 or 7 companies have had in the history of the stock market, and it's like 10 times bigger than the second greatest. Now, it's a little bit not fair because, like I said, everything's scaled up so much that we're dealing in multiple type numbers that we didn't used to deal in. As a percentage, we've had bubbles before. So, yeah, there have been times where things have run up as a percent. But I'll give you an example. SanDisk, right? That's their memory. So all of the chips pretty much, and we'll talk about some of them. SanDisk is up over, in the last 12 months, 1 year, they're up over 4,000%. That's a company that's been around for 40 or 50 years. So that's not like, okay, they just made a product. They went from concept to prototype to they release and they no, they've been doing the same thing for 50 years. And now they 4,000x in 1 year. I didn't own any SanDisk. I would have gladly sold every stock I have to just own just that. But there's others that are up 600%, 700%, 800%, 1,000%. And a few of those, now I wouldn't buy SanDisk right now. I think that one was first. It had its whole run. There's a couple that I'm in that I regret not dollar cost averaging in, but I don't think they're anywhere near done. So I think there's more room. And to your very first question, George, how many $1 trillion companies are there? And how many are coming? I think multiple of the chip companies, several of them have already crossed $1 trillion, and there are several more that by the end of this year are going to cross $1 trillion and join the $1 trillion club, which for the longest time was one company, Microsoft. Then Apple got over $1 trillion. So that party was a party of two for like 5 years. Then, we had 3 or 4, but it's doubled already this year, the number of $1 trillion companies. And I think it's going to double again. And then I think it's going to double again next year. We've never had a market, this AI market, whether you like AI or you dislike AI, whether you think any specific product is fantastic or garbage, the infrastructure, the supply chain is so massive. The dollars are so astronomical. The TAM on this is tens, if not hundreds of trillions of dollars. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's not. That's why I'm saying there's so much money coming into this. There's going to be $1 trillion of CapEx spent on AI infrastructure in 2026. $1 trillion. That's insanity. And they'll beat it next year. Because one way or the other, this stuff is coming. It's coming and it's here. I mean, let's change the poll. So most people think they're on board. Manipulation happens. 91% say, yeah, that's kind of how this works. We got to just work with it and deal with it. Go back and see how Bitcoin is doing. So let's end that poll. Sorry, I'm just finishing typing a poll. All right, let's go. While we're at it, this commercial break is brought to you by please smash the like button.
We're up to 50, by the way. Now we're at 52.
52. That's crazy. All right. Are we buying? And then I'm going to go through, well, you know what? Let me go through some of them right now since we're in the middle of talking about it rather than defer it until later. Where's my tab? They do. Guess what? I'll just make a new tab. So I'm just going to go through a few of these. So obviously, I'm going to start with the big dog. NVIDIA. This has been running for a few years. This is the largest company in the world now. It's the only company over $5 trillion. By the way, coming very soon is Google over $5 trillion. Google is on fire. I do not own Google and I do not own NVIDIA, but Google has more than doubled in the last year. Again, out of left field. And remember the narrative. What's every story you've heard about Google for the last year or two? Their search is in trouble. AI is gonna, they're dead. Their revenue stream's dead. It's gone. I've got an article right now of somebody saying that said it today. But if that's true, then how come Google, which was one of the biggest companies in the world, doubled this year? This is what I'm saying. We're starting to be at scales that are like things we've never seen before. And by the way, so first let's look at NVIDIA. So the 1 year won't be as impressive because they already ran, well, not too shabby, up 83% this year. The 5 year, they're up 1,352%. And you can see the first couple of the years of that was none of it. This is really a 3-year run that this stock went from average middle of the road, yeah, I heard of them, to biggest company in the world by market cap. So let's go a new edition, and I kick myself for this one. This was such an obvious raging buy, and I don't own any of it. So I will tell you, I feel like I was not diversified enough in my portfolio. And I have been, the last 60 to 75 days, I've been doing everything I can to get more diversified, because I truly, like, when we're done with these companies, you're going to see, like, this was the greatest run, like, in the history. Remember, because NVIDIA added $4.8 trillion in market cap in the last 3 years. Right? The amount of market cap that's been added in a 2 or 3 year window is more than, usually, just that amount is more than the whole stock market was worth 10 years ago. So that's just what the top few stocks have done. Intel was garbage. And anybody, if you own Intel, let me know. And let me know if, you were on board the whole time. Because I can tell you, there was a chorus, and they all were saying the same thing. Intel is dead money. It's a bad company. They have bad management. But what did Intel do in the last 1 year? They're up 495%. Give it one more day and they're up 500%. This year, I shouldn't say this year, 2026, in the last 1 year, that's 500% in 1 year, right? These are what we hope our small micro cap, nano cap stocks do. A 5x, and then a lot of times we'll get talking and somebody will say, well, I hope it 5x's, and everybody will jump on them and say, that you're getting crazy now. Things don't just 5x. Well, this is Intel. This is one of the top 5 most well-known brands in the history of the computer world. And in the last year, it's up 500%. This is now a $627 billion company. This one's going to $1 trillion, George.
It better.
So this is why I'm looking at it. I'm going, well, man, I don't want to buy a stock up 500% in the last 12 months, except it's going to double again. So, what do you do? Because now, and this is wrong, so I'm just going to tell you something that I do in investing that's absolutely wrong. And I try to correct this, but if and when I buy this now, all it's going to do to me as it doubles or triples, I'm going to look at it and go, you know what? My 30 grand would have been 400 grand right now if I wouldn't have been an idiot and waited an extra 1 year to invest. So that's wrong thinking, right? Because you can't go back in time. All your investment decisions start from now and go into the future. So, that kind of line of thinking is totally unproductive, but it's hard not to have it cross your mind. Here. Western Digital. Anybody remember these guys? Who's even talking about Western Digital? A lot of buzz out there about Western Digital. There should be. They're up 983% in the last 12 months. I mean, drop in the comments. These numbers got to be shocking to somebody. I fall out of my chair every time I look at these. I've never seen anything like it. And again, I've seen things like this with a group of, for instance, there was a bunch like Nikola and what were all the other, there was 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 EV companies. They were tiny. They all were up 1,000%, but they were up 1,000% to, from 1 million, from 1 billion to 10 billion or something like that, or from 10, even some of them from 10 billion to 100 billion. But Western Digital, they're now a $165 billion company, up 1,000%. They were smaller than IREN 12 months ago. To put it in perspective, when we get to a later conversation, remember, you're looking at a company that was smaller than IREN is right now 1 year ago. And they're now a $165 billion market cap. This is what can happen when something gets hot. And with a lot of these companies, here, PE 28. So is this a bubble? For a tech stock, a PE at 28 is probably low. So, everybody's comparing. I don't know. I don't know if I saved it. I won't bother going to it. I'll just tell you about it. Michael Burry came out yesterday and he was saying this period of time reminds me very much of the fourth quarter of 1999 and early in the first quarter of 2000. I think that's the period we're in right now. So for those of you who are too young to remember or don't remember, that was right before the stock market bubble burst. Now, the NASDAQ was at 5,000. It took 15 years for the NASDAQ to get back to where it was in the first quarter of 2000. That is a bubble. Those stocks didn't have 28 PEs. The main reason they didn't have 28 PEs? Almost none of them made any money. You can't have a price earnings if you don't make money. Most of them didn't even have any revenue, right? They were $100 billion companies with no revenue. So that's a bubble. This, to anybody that really remembers and was studying those stocks back then and is studying these stocks now, this does not feel like then. I don't know if and I'll tell you something, Michael Burry knows better than that. So I don't know what he's doing or what he's talking about. But these two things could not be more dissimilar. This is absolutely nothing. There is no resemblance between what is going on right now in AI and what went on with the tech stock, internet stock bubble in late 99 and the first quarter of 2000. two totally different things. Again, a lot of those companies forget making, a couple of these companies, some of these companies are making profit of $50 billion. $100 billion. I'm going to show you one that's going to make $100 billion. And in 2000, we're talking about companies, forget making $100 billion of profit. They had zero revenue or $100 million of revenue. $100 million of revenue versus $100 billion of profit. Those things are, if you could pick name two things that are the exact opposite of each other, it would be those two things. So if you're hearing, and that's why I'm saying this goes back to market manipulation, a lot of misinformation. Vet all the information you get, including from me, because you guys don't know if I'm any different than anybody else, right? So, just because I said it, go, and it's not hard. It's not hard to do a medium dive, right? You don't have to do a deep dive. You don't have to read all 100 pages of the financial statements every quarter for the last 3 years. You can spend 20 or 30 minutes and say, okay, you know what? There's something here. Or you know what everybody was talking about, that's garbage. That's nonsense. Here, this is the one that's got me on tilt. Micron. A dollar cost averaged into Micron with my first bucket 1 month ago. It is up 83%. So I kept waiting because, and you say, well, why wouldn't you do your second bucket? Because if you look at the 1 year, it's up 746%. So like I was saying, it was already up 400 or 500% when I started buying in. And that was this dip. This was a massive dip, and I bought the dip. So I thought, okay, good. I'll get a chance to dollar cost average because I think, the forward PE on this was as low as 5 at one point, maybe even 4. And everybody kept explaining that's because these chips are just commodities. And every once in a while, there's a shortage of supply and they have a good year, but it doesn't really mean anything because they're just going to go back to being garbage next year. I asked all the AIs. They all gave me that same answer. These are cyclical. They live in boom bust. And, I wouldn't be careful. I don't recommend investing. So the CEO of Apple just announced earnings. He literally came out and said, and he called Micron out in specific. He said, our chip cost is about to go up. In the quarter they just announced, he said it had very little effect. It's about to go up a lot in the next quarter, and this problem is not going away. Chips will never again be in a boom bust cycle. They are now a vital part of the AI supply chain. And this particular chip that Micron makes, there's only 3 companies in the world that make this chip. By the way, all 3 are in the top 20 biggest companies in the world. This is now an $842 billion company. Here's another $1 trillion company, George. And that's why I'm saying it's not going to take a year. This is going to be $1 trillion a month from now. And so, all these times, it went from it very quickly. I mean, look at this steep hill. There were no days between where I bought it. It was up over $100 within like a week after I bought it. So I'm thinking, I'm going to wait. I'm not going to do my second buy-in up $100 on a $300 and something stock. But I was wrong because this would have been the only it went from 470 to 455 and then boom to 700 and what is this at now? 746. And it's up 777%. in 1 year. So here, this is one. I started looking at it at 125. It got to 200 and I said, this is getting crazy. Let's wait for a pullback. Haha. It's at 455 now. If I would have bought it just a month ago when I bought Micron, I could have got this for 228. Like 5 days before that, it was under 200. And now it's at 450. 455. It's up 11% today. Now you could say, wow, that's crazy, except that's half the days. Oh, it's up 14%. It's up 11%. It's up 20%. It's up, and there are some down days. I will grant you, right? There was a down day here. But 1 year, the stock's up 347%. So here's a stock that in the last month, it's up a double, 96%. So you would think, well, you'd be an imbecile to buy this stock when it just doubled in the last month. But this stock, if you look year to date, it's actually lagging all of its peers fairly dramatically. I don't know what I just did. Okay, we'll end on this one, and then I will move on. Okay, so here you go. This is up 16.6% today. Well, maybe it was due. Let's see. It's up 100% in the last 1 month. That's pretty good. How's it doing on the year? It's up 4,161% in the last 1 year. 4,161%? This is a $231 billion company. That means it was a $5 billion company. It's crazy. So I feel like I missed one of the biggest parties in the history of the stock market. And the poll, will you invest in chip companies at this point, or are they overbought or in a bubble? 56% of you are saying yes, you would still buy at this point. And I am going to bring myself, I'm going to have to do it kicking and screaming, but I am going to bring myself to buy more of these stocks because I know they're not all going to do what SanDisk did, right? They're not all going up 4,000%. But my guess is AMD has a lot more to run, which I knew, why I'm kicking myself is I knew that at 125. And instead I bought some more, for instance, Marathon. So how'd that work out for me?
I think that's what everybody's asking right now, Tom. What are you going to do? Are you going to buy, or are you sitting on the sidelines? Do you think we got another run like AMD? I think AMD is going to go nuts, by the way.
That's the I will still, to me, the top two buys in this, and it seems crazy because one's up 370% and the other one's up 777%. But I think Micron and AMD are just getting going. Look at Micron's. They're now an $842 billion market cap. Now, the first time I looked at them a month ago, they were like, I don't know, a $450 billion market cap or something like that. They're going to make they're estimating their net income next year to be $100 billion. So even after this 777% run up, that leaves them at a forward PE of 8. Is that a buy? I'm buying a tech company with a forward PE of 8. And the theory was, and the CEO of Apple, I mean, if there's 5 experts on the face of this earth, he's one of them, came right out and said, our costs of chips are going up. He named Micron by name. He said he's looking to maybe make some kind of long-term deal with Micron to try to manage the price increases that are ahead.
But the labor is basically nothing. They paid these kids nothing to build this stuff. Sorry.
Well, they're minting money. They're going to make
$100
$100 billion next year. Most companies that make $100 billion, they're going to make way more money than most of the, multi-trillion-dollar companies. So,
are you saying that to Apple or Micron?
Micron.
Well, obviously that's probably made in China, correct? Micron.
I will tell you this: the government, and here was a tell. Intel, the government actually bought an equity interest in Intel. That was the most screaming buy signal in the history of the world. It's doubled since then. So Micron got, I think, $6 billion to build a gigantic chip factory in Syracuse, New York.
Oh, wow.
So that's in permitting right now. So it's going to take them 4 years to build. The first chip isn't even going to come out of that. They got awarded that money a year and a half ago. It'll be 6 years in between awarded money and getting the first chip. So, they're trying to move the supply chain back to the U.S., but that's the lead time. So for now, they are made elsewhere. I don't know if they're made in Taiwan. I don't know.
Yeah, but they're always going to be made in wherever they're made. They're just going to make some here.
Right. They're still not going to shut everything else down. They're just going to add capacity because they know they're one of 3 companies on earth that makes this. And
did you know what the reason I say that? Do you know what the average salary is of a person that works in China?
I'm sure it's
like in the United States dollars. I think it's less than $100 a month. Because when you multiply it by 7.5 or 8 yen, so
I don't understand this comment. Georgie, please ask Tom what's the point of the rant he's about to sell, or he's saying that it is a good time.
He's just asking what is the point of you saying all this stuff? Are you saying that, this isn't, I think, but your whole point was that this is just unbelievable and it's not over with and it's still going to keep going up.
My point is,
it goes along with your question, or is it time to sell?
Here's my first point. 10 of the 20 biggest companies in the world will be AI/chip companies within the next 6 months, which is shocking. So that's a part of a broader conversation. The other one is, yes, I'm trying to point out, despite the fact, because let's be honest, if most of you, if you're just taking a cursory look at this, you're going to go, you know what, this stock's up 777% in the last 1 year. Next, right? I'm not buying that stock. My point is, for AMD, for Micron, I think there's way more to come. Before I looked at any of this and just looked at what they were doing, looked at what their consensus forecast was for revenue and earnings. By the way, they beat estimates every single quarter. But even if they don't beat, I had this stock at about a $2,500 valuation. That's when I bought it for like $340. So I should have just kept buying it. But you know what? I'm making the same mistake right now. I should have bought some today. It's up 15% today. That's, you know how hard it is to buy a stock up 777% on the year and up 15% on the day? But the fact is, in my opinion, it's a steal right now. So I guess that's what I'm getting at. I'm also getting at this fundamental shift. I'm showing you company after company after company that are going to go from insignificant to trillion-dollar plus companies. This is the new economy. This is the new stock market. Dollar cost averaging, and I'm not saying don't do all that, but expecting a 7% return over a 50-year period. No, if you stock pick, if you do your homework, if you follow the trends and you stock pick, this is what's going to happen sector by sector. And I already, we can see some of the ones that are next. Now, this one's on a scale that blows my mind. Yes, no one has ever seen anything like this in the history of the stock market, because it's never happened.
Well, I think it's the history of the world.
Right, in the history of the world.
And it makes me think of that Simpson episode when they were saying that Trump was president and the stock market was at 90,000.
Well, that could happen. So I'm bullish. Obviously, you can hear me. I sound bullish. I'm bullish. I understand, there's a lot of variables that go. So I'm going to read Sour Melon Gaming said, people need to quit complaining about spending an extra $10 or so when they fill their gas tanks. If that wrecks your finances, you got bigger problems. Good Lord. So I understand what Sour Melon's Gaming is saying. I do know there are people that the price of gas affects their, right, there you are, paycheck to paycheck, and there's unfortunately far too many people that are paycheck to paycheck, and every $10 counts. But on the other side, I will say, if we got to pay a few extra bucks for a period of time, and I don't know what that period of time is it 3 months, 6 months, 9 months? I don't know. If the net result of all that is something very positive, then I think it will have been worth going through the pain.
It was funny because we made it on the members. We said, you and I said we thought oil would be less than $100 on Tuesday.
Yes.
We missed it by 1 day, by the way. The next day it went below 100, and right now it sits around 93.
And while it may continue to fluctuate in the very short term, I'm going to say on this stream what I said to the members, and everyone, now you're really going to think I needed a rubber room. I would expect oil to be under $60 by the end of the year. So we're going to do a poll.
That would be a good CUDAB prediction poll.
That's absolutely. So almost 58% of you say, yep, the chips are still a buy. I completely agree. And I'm going to do my best not to look backwards at what I missed and just to look forward and see what opportunity is still ahead. And more importantly, my biggest lesson that I take from this, well, I was so busy and focused on a specific set of stocks, and I do have a very big watch list, and these were all on the watch list. I just wasn't spending enough time looking at them saying what's going on, because I missed the biggest move in the history of the stock market. The good news is I think we're halfway through it, maybe less. Some of these may have much. For instance, I'm telling you, my price target for Micron, was not financial advice. You guys do your own math. My price target for Micron's $2,500. That's my 12-month price target for Micron. So what if it only does half of that? I'm still good to buy it here, right here. That's how I look at it. And Hood Explorer, I have owned Western Digital. Very nice. Congratulations. So you've made big bucks. Right? That one was a home run, and there could be more to go. So that was a good, right? That's not a sexy name. That's not, everybody's not out there doing videos on Western Digital, but you know what? It was a grand slam home run. And Dave's asking, should we invest in AI? So this is my point. AI is not what's next. It is what's here. And this is where the market is going for quite some time. So, who knows what's happening 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. But I can tell you for most of the next 5 years, this is going to dominate the market. And there will be other things that pop up that are going to be 10x or 20x opportunities. And understand, you're not going to get a 10 or 20x on every stock you invest in. But if you invest properly and just one or two of them pop off like this, and you don't make big mistakes, then you're a big winner. Right? Let's say the rest of your portfolio is going up. For instance, I'm adding shares of Microsoft. Microsoft's not going up 500%.
You can't say that.
Eventually they will, but they're not going to be a 5x in the next 1 or 2 years. But I bet they'll be up 30 or 40 or 50%. So that's a phenomenal return. I'm not going to get a 5x or a double or a triple or a quadruple out of every single stock, because if that were true, that means 100% of all my money would be invested in ultra high risk plays. I do have a disproportionate amount of money invested in what a lot of people would consider ultra high risk plays. I don't consider them high risk. So, I watch very closely. I'm ridiculously familiar with what they're doing. And I think there's a lot of upside ahead. I think some of these are still mispriced. All right. That was a tangent. I think we should talk about IREN. I'm going to ask this poll before I give you my opinion, but let's go through what IREN did.
Let
me just do a little typing here real quick. And drop in the comments section what your price target is for the next 1 year for IREN. And then I'm going to show you what they did. If you want to wait until we talk about it a little, or if you guys have all read all of this and you're up to speed, I'm sure there's a mixture of both. So let's start this poll. And I'm just simply asking thoughts on IREN stock price. Too high, it's going down. Sideways, it is kind of is where it is, and it's just going to hang around, or too low and it's going up. You guys can probably guess what I think, but I will talk about it right now. Okay, I'm going to try to do these in, well, I don't know that there's any particular order. I'm going to just go through their press releases. Some of them I'm going to spend only a little bit of time on, some of them more. They did 3 press releases on the same day. And then they did their conference call. And I understand they were 20 minutes late for their conference call. But they're busy minting money. So, and making the moves that you're going to see that I'm talking about. So I'm not too upset about that. Okay, IREN secures $3.4 billion AI cloud contract with NVIDIA. I'm going to take each one of these on their own because I went to X, I went to StockTwits, and I will tell you, either there is a massive campaign to put FUD out there, or most people did not understand what any of these transactions were. They had a general, maybe misunderstanding of what's going on here. So I'm going to try to give just a topside, my estimation of what's being said here. And do us a favor, if you just joined us or if you have not yet, please smash the like button. It does help the stream out massively in real time. It's much appreciated. When George comes back, he can give us a like count. We're going for 100 likes. We've failed many weeks in a row. We're starting to feel like
60. We're at 65.
We are slowing down massively. Help us. Okay. IREN. IREN secured $3.4 billion AI cloud contract with NVIDIA. So
71.
71, nice. So two different things are going on here. First of all, under the agreement, IREN will provide NVIDIA with access to managed GPU cloud services for its internal AI and research workloads, including orchestration and cluster management software in collaboration with Mirantis, which we'll talk about later. That's another one of their press releases. The agreement will be serviced by air-cooled Blackwell platform systems to be deployed within approximately 60 megawatts of IREN's existing data centers at the Childress, Texas campus. So first of all, understand, this is a 5-year contract worth $3.4 billion. That's how much 60 megawatts are kicking off. So when you see these numbers, I'm going to give you my 1-year target, and then I'm going to give you my 5-year target. And I think it's more like a 3.5-year target. So this is a $3.4 billion. This is a $3.4 billion deal. There's two things that jump off the page at me about this. The $3.4 billion deal is not only proof of concept, but it's a deal with NVIDIA. NVIDIA is the king of AI. Period. End of paragraph. They're the largest company in the world. They are driving the bus. And they're not just going to use some of this for a random reason. You're going to see later, this is going to be a core part of NVIDIA. This is a part of an overall adoption strategy in NVIDIA saying, we pick IREN. Now, understand, a $5 trillion company doesn't just pick one company. There are several companies that they will make deals with, and some of which they have already made deals with. But what they are signaling is, and if they're wrong, they'll bail. So, right, the IREN still has to prove it. But what they're saying is, we want IREN to be a significant part of our ecosystem going forward. And by the time I'm done with all these press releases, you'll see why I say that. Because this on its own is $3.4 billion. That's fantastic, but it's not, game over. It's 60 megawatts. That's great. But this company already has, I'll get to the release and tell you, but they have drastically more energy available than that. So this is just a small piece of their puzzle. IREN expands AI cloud platform to Europe. Again, this is still the same day. All of these were the same day they did their conference call. IREN expands, which was yesterday. IREN expands AI cloud platform to Europe with acquisition of Nostrum Group. So I'm just going to skip to the key part here. The acquisition marks IREN's entry into the European market and increases its power portfolio to 5 gigawatts. So remember, we just talked about 60 megawatts throwing off $3.5 billion. Do the math, convert that to 5 gigawatts. Okay, it adds approximately 490 megawatts of secured grid-connected power in Spain, together with an additional development pipeline, enhancing IREN's ability to service observed customer demand in Europe. So most of what they've been doing has been in the United States. This is a 0.5 gigawatt in Europe. So this was a big announcement. Any one of these on their own, If I was them, I would have done 5 press releases. Next. What happened? These two. Oh, that's up there twice. NVIDIA and IREN announced strategic partnership to accelerate deployment of up to 5 gigawatts of AI infrastructure. This is a totally separate deal than the NVIDIA deal we just talked about. The other deal, NVIDIA is going to pay them money. They are a paying customer. Here's what this is. NVIDIA and IREN today announced a strategic partnership to accelerate deployment of next-generation AI infrastructure. As part of the partnership, NVIDIA and IREN intend to support deployment of up to 5 gigawatts of NVIDIA's DSX-aligned AI infrastructure across IREN's global data center pipeline over time. So they are specifically fitting these for NVIDIA's big gun chips. NVIDIA and IREN will collaborate on deployment of NVIDIA accelerated compute in DSX AI factories to expand access to AI native startup and enterprise customers. As part of the partnership, IREN issued, okay, so this part is also a little bit confusing to people. A lot of you probably get it, but for those who don't, IREN also issued to NVIDIA a 5-year right to purchase up to 30 million shares of ordinary stock at an exercise price of $70 per share, resulting in a right to invest up to $2.1 billion, subject to certain conditions, including regulatory. So I just want to spend a second on what this is. They are not buying 30 million shares of stock right now. They may never buy them. They're not giving NVIDIA $2.1 billion right now. They may later, they may not. They're locking in at $70. So what does that say? That says NVIDIA thinks they have a 5-year right to buy this at $70. NVIDIA believes there's upside dramatically past $70 a share because they're not looking for a 5-year option to buy this stock at the market price or above the market price. No, they're looking to buy this stock at some fraction of what it's trading at when they exercise these options, if and when they exercise these options. So this is a good deal for NVIDIA because they can just throw them in the garbage. If IREN fails, this is nothing. If IREN succeeds, they got 5-year option to buy these shares at $70. My guess is they will do it sooner than that by a lot. The partnership is intended to accelerate deployment of large-scale AI factories by combining NVIDIA's DSX AI factory architecture with IREN's expertise across power, land, data centers, GPU deployment, and infrastructure operations. Future deployments are expected to focus on IREN's 2-gigawatt Sweetwater campus in Texas, which the companies expect to serve as a flagship deployment of NVIDIA's DSX architecture. Flagship. So they are looking to they have decided IREN, they think IREN's going to be one of the winners. Right? They've hedged their bets. So the two things I'll say about this is this is not a signed contract to do business in any way, shape, or form. This is an agreement in principle. This is what they intend to do together. They think they're good partners. They can get this done together. There's the barrier to getting it done, right? Because you're going to see IREN's ready to do this. And so this is a very strong, in my opinion, this is a gigantic endorsement from NVIDIA that IREN is going to be one of the winners. Right? We said there's going to be winners, there's going to be losers, there'll be some that do okay. NVIDIA's with this, they believe IREN's going to be one of the winners. Now understand, if they waste $2 or $3 billion and it goes the wrong way, NVIDIA's such a monster, $5 trillion company that it's not going to make or break them. I understand that, but it's a significant investment. This is going to be, potentially $100 billion or more investment by the time they're done into what was, an $18 billion company. So it's
20 billion, but
20 billion. Now, yes, when they did this, it was. Yeah, so
it's already paid off.
See, they're making big bucks. So after hours, this stock actually ran up to $72. Immediately ran straight to $72 because and there's an exercise price of $70. So there's a line of reasoning behind that. And then what proceeded to happen for the next couple of hours, I don't know that I will never ever know the answer to, but this got all the way back down to negative, and by the end of today it was up, but let me just take a quick look. IREN was up 7.65% today. So not the 22% that it was in after hours yesterday, and the other thing I would note about that, this 7.65%, all that did was get them back to where they were 2 days ago. So during hours yesterday, they sold off $4. So now today they added that $4 back to land them right where they started, which means this news was built in as zero for them.
Tom, I have a question.
Yes.
This is a crazy one.
Fire away.
Could this get to $1 trillion company?
Now you're starting to see where I'm going with this.
You already knew that. I'm just catching up. Sorry, everyone.
Now, I don't think it's going to get to $1 trillion, but this is a $20 billion company. A 10x on this would be a $200 billion company. I think that's on the table. Now, accounting for dilution, they're going to try to do this through a lot of what they're going to be able to do is with customer deposits. They're not going to have to borrow money, and they're looking to go debt first, but there could be some equity dilution. So even if you account for some equity dilution, if they go from, let's say that 10x is reduced to a 7x because of dilution, right? Well, that's still $420 stock. Does that sound crazy? Right? It's a $61 stock right now. And Old Jock, by the way, before I said any of this, Old Jock said $500 by 2030. So he already did all this math and came right where I am. I think there's every chance this stock goes to $500. On hype, could it go to some other stupid number? I'm not trying to figure that out. I'm just saying on a fair value basis, I agree with Old Jock. It's aggressive, but I think by $500 by 2030 that should be one of the scenarios. If you're making scenario, maybe it's your bull case scenario. Maybe that's your top scenario. I think it could even do better than this. It could do worse. I understand. I'm not, I don't think it's going to, there's 100% chance it's going to $500. and Old Jock is saying $150 this time next year. So we're very much on the same page. I think this is going to make the run. I think this should double. So I think this should go in the next year to $120, and with momentum to keep running. So all of these 5 press releases have dramatically changed my thesis on what I'm going to do with IREN and when I'm going to sell it. Because if this hit 75, I was going to start selling. I was going to sell 5% at 75. And I am not doing that because now unless they totally fumble. And here's the thing. The last 3 years, the one thing I have consistently said about IREN is they say they're going to do something and they do it. They hit their benchmarks. They do what they say they're going to do in the time they say they're going to do it. Now, that's no guarantee that they're going to be 100% on schedule with everything they're talking about going forward. But I think they will be very close. And if they're not, they've always done an excellent job of communicating. So I think they will get all this stuff done. And I think that sky is the limit for this stock. This stock, I expected this yesterday. I'm sorry, 2 days ago, HUT went up 35% in one day. The announcement that they made, in my opinion, was nowhere near as good as the series of announcements that IREN made this week. So I thought there was a chance we'd see a 30 or 40% run on this today, but the market wildly disagreed with me. They basically brought it up to, I'm going to go to the chart. Here, if I draw a line, you'll see. This is where this closed on Wednesday. They did earnings on Thursday. So, and here's where they closed on Friday. Right? What's the actual close? The close was $60.98. So they're up 22 cents. All these announcements put together created a 22-cent uptick in IREN on a $60 stock, which means the market is pricing every single thing we just talked about. And I'm not done. There's more at zero. I don't think that makes any sense. I think it creates an unbelievably good potential buying opportunity, but understand this is a stock. I mean, on the flip side, right from March 30th until the highs of today, which we pulled off of dramatically, the stock was up 117%. It closed up over 100% in the last 5.5 weeks. So that's where if you're buying now, that's where you're buying it. But given everything we just heard, I mean, I would have it on my watch list anyway. Sour Melon Gaming said $500. New pair of pants. You're going to get, all right. Well, that's the least you could do, Sour Melon. You're going to be able to get more than that if this thing does what it should do. And understand, I'm not going to, if this stock's at $280, I'm not going to go, man, that was a disappointment. That is a gigantic, monumental, especially considering the fact that I bought it at $6. So, a lot of people would say I'm getting greedy right now, not taking profits, but I just feel like the market is so viciously underpricing this at the moment. I can't see selling it right now. If I was a day trader or a swing trader, I could see this argument. If you look here, let me switch to this. If you look at the daily RSI, we just got a little overbought. So if I was swing trading this, I would say, maybe I would have sold it at the peak today, and maybe I'll buy it back next week and sell it. But I'm not doing that. I'm holding this for long term. So to me, you know what? If it goes like this first and retests that level, I can't fathom that it will do that, but maybe it will. Then I'll buy more of this. This is the only stock on this list that I would consider buying more of. There are other companies that I think are exceptional on the list that we looked at. I don't think I'll get that buying opportunity. I think this was a weird day of price action, right? If you look at it from the peak, this actually was down. It closed down 6.5%, almost 7% from its peak today. So I don't get it. That's what it did, though. Just finish up with this.
We're getting there, Tom.
How many we got?
We're at 82.
82. Smash the like button.
18 to go, Tom.
82 down, 18 to go. Let's do it today. One time. Like they say at the casino. One time. Come on, one time. All right. I'm going to spend very little time on this. And this is where I think everybody made their gigantic mistake in the market today. And the smart, big, giant money knows this, and they're just playing games. IREN business update and Q3 26 results. So they give some good headlines up here. $3.4 billion AI cloud contract, 5 gigawatt strategic partnership with NVIDIA. We went through all that in detail. 2026 expansion. So this is worth talking about. 2026 expansion to a $3.7 billion annual run rate. This is a company that was doing like 2 years ago, their revenue was like $100 million, maybe less. And now it's going to be $3.7 billion, and it's probably going to double again the next year. So you're talking about a company that's going to go up like 1,000% top line year over year. I don't know, maybe it's 600 or 700. I don't even know if any analysts have. Take a quick look. I'm just taking a shortcut. There's longer ways we could try to find more detail. Okay. Oh, that's next quarter. Okay. 510 million. So this won't go back far enough. $510 million in revenue. Then 889 million. So the year before this was like 100 million. So they went from 100 million to 500 million. Then they're going to go to just about 900 million. And then they're going to go to 2.8 billion, except I already know that's wrong because they already have more in their backlog for next year than that. So this 2.8, the highest guess rate here, the highest estimate by an analyst was 4.21 billion. To me, that is the floor of what their 2027 top line is going to be. You're looking at somewhere between a $4 or $5 billion top line company next year. So, and again, that will make them maybe 3 years removed from a top line company of $100 million. That's a 40x. On the top line, and it's going to be a lot more than that on the bottom line. And they will still have not put most of their backlogged energy up and running and into service and contracted. So this company can get to revenues significantly higher than that. That's just the beginning. If they do $4 billion in revenue next year, it'll be the worst year they ever have ever again.
How much do you think Matt's mouth of salve is just like spitting fire
over at CleanSpark?
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. And CleanSpark had their earnings. Well, let me go. They didn't have their earnings. They put out their. Let me let's switch gears. That's a good question. CleanSpark releases April 2026 operational update. So I own a lot of CleanSpark. I bought just as much CleanSpark as I bought IREN, except for the fact that IREN's gone through the roof and CleanSpark is trudging along. So, one of those positions is now many magnitudes bigger than the other, but my cost basis is pretty much the same in both of them. Anyway, April was another strong month that reinforced our confidence in the road ahead, producing 640 Bitcoin and averaging over 21 Bitcoin per day reflects the scale and efficiency we've built into our mining operations. But what excites me most, in other words, forget everything I just said because it doesn't matter. What excites me most is what this infrastructure unlocks beyond mining, said CleanSpark CEO and Chairman Matt Schultz. With 1.8 gigawatts under contract, we're advancing a multi-gigawatt AI infrastructure platform that we believe will define our next chapter. As we progress towards AI tenancy across multiple assets, we continue to make meaningful headway towards securing our first, they have no contracts, our first hyperscale customer. So when George asks, how much is Matt salivating? This is better than his best dream. What IREN just got, these guys aren't going to get anything that even resembles. And I think CleanSpark's a good company with massive upside. But their next announcement's not even going to resemble what we just talked about. So the answer is, this would have changed. This stock would have been up 200% if they got that announcement. Bitcoin mining funds the platform, AI monetizes it, and we intend to do both exceptionally well. So you can see this language is a dramatic shift since Matt took over as CEO. He was already the chairman of the board, and this was a company that was hanging on, saying, this was before ABTC came into existence, we are the only pure play Bitcoin mining company. We only mine Bitcoin. We're never going to get involved in this AI stuff. And so that was, they thought, a selling point. Well, it turns out, right or wrong, the reality is Bitcoin mining is considered toxic in the stock market right now. And investors are treating it that way. I believe that will change. I think there's all of these stocks that continue to mine Bitcoin. I think they're going to get their bump as well on Bitcoin, particularly the ones that have a big hodl, because that's just straight money. But this company has made a massive shift. You can now see he's saying, well, Bitcoin's going to fund this. In other words, we'll get some Bitcoin, but we're going to sell it and build more AI infrastructure. This is exactly what IREN did from the beginning. They never hodled any. And these are two, by the way, these are two of the most efficient fleets in the world. IREN's fleet, which they're decommissioning, was the most efficient fleet of any publicly traded company. And CleanSpark has the second most efficient fleet of any publicly traded company. So I think CleanSpark they ran to 50, and now it's a year later and they have not bought a machine since they got to 50. So it's obvious they're going to do what we were talking about 18 months ago. I've been saying I don't know why anybody would buy the next machine until right before the next halving. Because any machine you bought a year and a half ago, you're going to throw out before the next halving. Anyway, so they stopped. Pretty much everybody stopped. The global hash rate is down over the last 9 months. That's an all-time first for Bitcoin. And I think, there's going to be a lot of going sideways on that global hash rate and therefore the difficulty level. So that's going to help these companies a lot. Imagine if there had been the normal trajectory and the difficulty level had gone up 60% in the last 9 months. You think the economics are bad now? No, it's gone down. So, and we know for a fact there's I know about probably 70 or 80, maybe more exahash that companies have already said we're taking offline. So will they sell it to somebody else and maybe they'll put it online eventually? I don't know, but and these are all companies that had big. CleanSpark had announced plans to get to 60 exahash and beyond, but they stopped at 50 cold. And I don't think they'll ever. They may replace their existing fleet and upgrade it, but I think they've told you their concept. Bitcoin, quote from the CEO: Bitcoin mining funds the platform, but AI monetizes it. So that's what they're doing.
I just looked up Compass Mining.
Oh man.
And I looked up their Trustpilot score. It's a 3, and I bet you it's worse than that. Here, Blair wrote, "Do not mine with Compass. I've been a customer for several years now. They were good when I started with them, but got for a second year with some overhauls to their support. Significant downtime. I was contacted, BS claims. Well, I should have just bought Bitcoin instead of mining. Stay away. They stink." Remember, I was going to make a big investment.
Until we went to their booth.
Yeah. Yeah. It was funny because we probably were the only ones there with real money. And I started asking them questions and they were just like dumbfounded.
I don't know who. It's like they hired people off the street to stand in their booth.
Yeah. I was like, Tom, I can't do this. I got to move, Tom, because I think I'm sitting next to the 2 last spots in Georgia where there's going to be data mining centers.
Oh, boy.
There's a substation right here that hardly has any activity. So it's ready to be rock and rolling.
It's coming.
It is. I'm like, time to move.
I'm just going to finish up on IREN real quickly because we didn't quite get to the end. Here's what happened on this conference call and on the chat online. And again, I take it with a grain of salt, but I probably looked at 500 or 1,000 comments between stock twits and X. They were on fire last night because of all of this information. And the majority of those comments were negative. All these guys are scammers. We're getting scammed again. We're getting screwed. They're screwing the share. I couldn't even follow their line of reasoning. So let me know in the comments if you think all of this put together is actually just some type of scam that they're pulling, because I can't even. I'm using my imagination and I can't understand how that would be. So let's get to the point. Q3 financial results. Results reflected continuing progress in the transition from Bitcoin mining to AI cloud. Total revenue decreased to 144 million versus 184 million in the same quarter. Oh, versus I think that's the previous quarter. Net income / loss, they had a loss of 247 million versus 155 million in the previous quarter. EBITDA decreased to 59 million from 75 million. So worse. They not only did they lose money, but it was way more money than they had previously lost. Their top line, this is supposed to be an ultra high growth company, and their top line went down. On paper, that sounds like a catastrophe. But it went down because they're winding down and closing their existing operations. This 144 million, that's going to go to zero. Now, revenue on their income statement isn't going to go to zero, but this is Bitcoin mining revenue. They're not Bitcoin miners anymore. They told everybody that. They're getting rid of all their machines. They've already taken a bunch of them offline. So not only was the price of Bitcoin down, so the Bitcoin they mined was worth less, but they took a lot of their machines offline. So the narrative out there was these guys missed on the top line. They missed on the bottom line. They're losing money faster than I can count it. What's the story here? This sell. But it's all on a business segment that's closed. Right? It's not done being closed. It's in the progress of closing. The revenue from that line of business that you're looking at right here will no longer exist 1 year from now. They will be a 100% AI or data center company. For those of you who have been watching the channel long enough, you'll remember there was a conference call maybe 2.5 or 3 years ago where the CEO of IREN came out and said, we are not a Bitcoin mining company. Our expertise is in data centers. We build data centers. And I will tell you, because you can go back and look, I was totally disgusted with that statement. My reaction to that was, how does a company that has 100% of their revenue have the balls to say they're not a Bitcoin mining company? But he knew what was coming. So, right, he knew the second half of the story, the other shoe to drop. So he was pounding, even back then, he was explaining to people, our expertise is in data centers. And it was most of the conference call. We're better at this than everybody else. In fact, he really got pretty specific and critical, basically said, almost all of our competitors, their data centers are garbage. They don't even know what they're doing. And that's what we do. So now all of a sudden, fast forward 2.5 to 3 years, what's the number one thing the world's in need of? Data centers. This is the in-demand thing. This is the bottleneck in the supply chain. Right? Chips are going through the roof. So chips are critical, but they're not a bottleneck because they have enough supply. It's just they get to sell them for a lot of money. So chips are vital and they're going to keep going up. But this is the bottleneck. We don't have enough power. We don't have enough data centers. So those companies that started 3 or 4 years ago are light years ahead of, say, a Marathon, who just a few months ago decided, you know what? I guess we better get into this AI thing. It's not going anywhere. I own a bunch of Marathon. That will be the first stock that I dollar cost average out of. I'm not selling it. I think there's a lot. I think it's underpriced. It's being punished, and maybe rightfully so. But at some point, I think it will cross with its fair market value, and I will sell it at that point. But I do not have long-term conviction in Marathon. So while I do hold a big position of it, it'll be the first one I sell. And the second one I sell, depending on the timing, I have an exit strategy for formerly Bitfarms, now Keel. And I actually think Ben is fantastic at what he does. And I think that he's going to execute on their plan. But I think my cost basis is around $1 in Keel. If I can dollar cost average out between $5 and $10, I'm going to be very happy with that.
You should mention it.
Huh?
No, I'm yelling at somebody who doesn't want to pay me. Sorry.
That's everybody now these days, isn't it? Okay, thoughts on IREN stock price. 59% said it's too low right now. So that was the winner. Sideways, 25%. Too high, it's going down, 16%. So opinions varied. This was not by unanimous by any means, but the majority think it's low and it's going higher. Sour Melon Gaming said, I hope CleanSpark does well. I have a lot of shares, but I've definitely lost confidence in their team. I know, somebody earlier said Matt should get off of X and start working or something to that extent. I understand, but CleanSpark's been another company that their problem is not execution. They've been fantastic at execution. They're another one. They said they were going to get from 5 exahash to 50 exahash. They did it. They missed on their time frame, but it was by weeks, and they told us 2 months ahead of time. Looks like we're going to be a little bit late, and they gave us update after update after update. So they have a very good track record of doing what they say they're going to do. They were later than a lot of these companies to shift gears, but when they did so in a big way. Now, here's the bottom line for me with CleanSpark. This is the second or third or fourth time Matt said, like, we're at the end stages of getting ready to make a deal. So, you only get to say that for so long. So I would expect a deal in the next 90 days. If at their next quarterly earnings conference call, he's talking about how they're super close to making a deal, that will be something that makes me take a harder look at this as a company. I don't think that's going to happen. I think they'll get their first deal. It's not going to be the mother of all deals, but it doesn't have to be. They got to get on the board. They got a goose egg going right now. They got to get on the board, prove themselves, build out the infrastructure, and I think they will. Mr. Zhang said, I hope CleanSpark announces some HPC AI catalyst news on Monday's earnings. Right, could be as soon as Monday. Thank you for the comment, and thanks for being a member. Right, we've got a conference call coming on Monday. This is just what we looked at earlier was just their monthly operational report. If BitDeer puts theirs out, they'll be the only two companies that I look at that even put an operational report out anymore. This was industry standard. Most companies decided, you know what? I don't want to put out a report that talks about Bitcoin every month because I want to pretend I'm not associated with Bitcoin, which is not very good if what you do is mine Bitcoin. But I understand, like that industry was in the doghouse, and so I get it. They all stopped doing monthly reports. A lot of them have slowed down their Bitcoin mining, or they're stopping it altogether, and they all happen to, as a function of, if you want to call it great planning, if you want to call it pure luck,
pure luck, by the way.
Well, it could be. Because they had to get vertically integrated to have a shot at being profitable, they all switched gears 3 or 4 years ago to becoming their own energy company, data center companies. So that left them in the perfect spot when this vacuum opened, when this bottleneck occurred in AI, which is hard to believe that as big as crypto, I think crypto is one of the things that's going to change the world. But the amount of money that's going into AI, crypto's a joke. There's $2.5 trillion in cryptocurrency. They're going to spend, just in infrastructure, they're going to spend more than that on AI in this year and next year. Right? It's 100 times or 1,000 times bigger.
Everybody here got into crypto before AI even existed.
Right, exactly.
Or most everybody. We're at 92 likes, just so you know.
All right, let's go. 8 more likes. Let's make it happen. So, for those companies that do a good job, that either do a hybrid and have two, I think that's the best plan. I know a lot of people want to just throw Bitcoin mining in the gutter, but I do think there will be a bull run, and I'm going to talk about that next. And I think Bitcoin mining will be back in fashion, and the Bitcoin miners will get their pump. So I think having,
2035.
I'm talking about 2026. I know I'm
just hoping I can get my interest payment from Mr. I might need to sell my Bitcoin.
Uh-oh.
Michael Saylor.
Let's talk about him right now.
You would think he could have done what's called a cash flow?
I want to talk about you. You just brought up a great topic because it deserves to be discussed. Just find it. Give me a minute. And then I have two other things I really want to talk about.
95, Tommy.
95. Let's go.
100. Dude, it should be 1,000. I think even YouTube laughs at us. Hey, they're right, but you know what? That Tom guy's really smart. Let's not let anybody see that.
No, suppress that.
Suppress, we don't want people to know what IREN's really going to do.
Pardon
What? AMD? No, that's our money. Dave, it's so funny watching you reading your texts. I read all the texts. They're so funny, guys.
Aha. It's always the last one you look at. Michael Saylor's strategy signals potential Bitcoin sale to fund dividend obligations. The interwebs went bananas on this one. And I do not blame them. But I do want to try to clarify what I think is going on here. I don't think the mistake... what Michael Saylor did say this, and I'm going to tell you what he said. I don't think that was the mistake. I think alluding to the fact, because, you know, somebody did a fact check and tried to see, has he ever actually said we will never sell a Bitcoin? And he has not. But he said 1,000 things that sound pretty much exactly like that. So I would think that he said that. And he's made it clear, whether he said those exact words or not, they've made it clear they're holding Bitcoin. They are not selling Bitcoin. So to come out of what felt like left field, here's what he said. Executive Chairman Michael Saylor suggested during its Q1 2026 earnings call, the company may sell a portion of its Bitcoin holdings to fund dividend payments, stating, we will, quote, we will probably sell some Bitcoin to pay a dividend just to inoculate the market and send the message that we did it. What? There was not one person whose jaw didn't hit the ground when they were listening to that. That goes against everything they've ever said. Is it potentially, technically not in conflict? I don't care. They've been crystal clear. We're buying Bitcoin and we're holding it forever.
Yeah, I know.
They've been crystal clear. This is no gray area. So this is not what they talked about. In fact, just a few months ago, he talked about the fact that they never have to sell any Bitcoin. We never have. He didn't say, so here's his distinction. He didn't say we're never going to sell any Bitcoin, but he did the math and he showed we never have to sell any Bitcoin. We can pay our dividends for the next 10 years without selling a Bitcoin. Well, when I hear somebody say that, along with the other 10,000 things he said, they more than lead me to believe they have no intention of selling Bitcoin. So
if he sells Bitcoin, he's getting sued.
Well, here's the thing. I'm going to play the flip side. So I feel that the market rightfully was pissed about this statement. So that is totally valid. But what he's talking about doing is, if Bitcoin goes up, you buy Bitcoin.
After he gets over his million?
It goes up. You sell some to pay a dividend so that and then you borrow more money, you buy more Bitcoin, it goes up some more. So what he's talking about is not, he's not talking about a shift, and I want to find the exact sentence because he did come back. You buy Bitcoin with credit, you let it appreciate, and then you sell Bitcoin to pay the dividend. Following the announcement, Strategy stock fell more than 4% in after-hours trading. So this is what he's talking about. And then he later tried to, I don't want to say backtrack, but he said, listen, we're going to be a net adder of Bitcoin every month. I'm just saying that I might pay some dividends with it. So maybe in a certain month we bought 18,000 Bitcoin, but we're going to use 6,000 of them to pay a dividend. We still bought Bitcoin. We're still up.
But
So
I think that hurt Bitcoin overall too. Because everybody's subtracting that from the free float. You know what I mean?
and I think they should, because I think this will be, if you have they're going to have 1 million Bitcoin by the end of this year. If they sell a couple of thousand Bitcoin, but continue to add to their supply, their hodl every single month, but use some to pay a dividend, it's something different than what he's inferred. That's right. So that is clearly not what he's been talking about, but I don't think it changes the narrative. I do think that, everyone has a right to try to digest this information, maybe be a little ticked off at this potential change. He may get so much pushback on this that he goes, you know what? Not doing it.
You know what, though, Tom? If he does it, I think the ripple effect. So here's what I'm worried about, is that he takes a big compensation package and that he has to sell. Does that make sense?
He's not going to sell to pay himself. The only thing they will sell Bitcoin for.
No. But this is what they do. They don't sell to pay themselves. They take the free cash to pay themselves. And then they say, let's take and use the Bitcoin to repay our interest. That's how they do it.
Well,
but the two are not mutually exclusive, is what I'm saying.
This is an unusual company. So I understand what you're saying, and that's true. But I would just amend it a little bit, because accepting for the fact that there actually is a small underlying business here. I'm ignoring that, as is the rest of the market. There is a very tiny software company that exists underneath all of this. But that's not why people are buying and selling the stock.
98, Tom?
There is no... Huh?
98.
98. We're almost there. This company has no cash flow.
Right.
They have to have debt or equity. That's where and that's from now. If they're going to hodl every Bitcoin forever, then they will never have any cash flow. There is no source of cash flow. So that's the equation. That hasn't changed. Like we've known that all along. The question is the appreciation going to be worth it? And this is going to be a big win or not? So he might have been
told to do this too.
Well, he's stepped down as the CEO, but he is the chairman of the board. He is MicroStrategy. He stepped down as the CEO because, like I said, there's a small underlying software business here, and he's not going to spend his day-to-day running that. He is a Bitcoin ambassador, and that's his role as the chairman of the board of strategy. And that's he is Mr. Bitcoin. I mean, I don't know who's in second place. There's a lot of people that are gigantic Bitcoin bulls, but Michael Saylor's bought, between his own personal supply and MicroStrategy's, the guy's bought 1 million Bitcoin. There's nobody else that can say that. So it's hard to argue he's not all in on Bitcoin. But I understand that, all of a sudden out of left field going, maybe we'll sell some of these. When you just 2 months ago did a whole math on how We don't need to sell Bitcoin to pay our dividends. Because people were raising a concern. You got an 11.5% dividend. You're not going to be able to afford that. And so he said, yes, we can. We don't need, because he said two things at the same time. He talked about, I expect Bitcoin to average 30% return on an annual basis. But average does not mean every year. Some years it could go up, some years it could go down. So people were saying, what are you going to do in the years it goes down? How are you going to pay your dividend? And so he went through the math and showed, like, we can pay our dividend for 10 years. They really don't have, their debt is not structured to restrict their Bitcoin. Their Bitcoin's not collateralizing it. So they're in very good shape financially. But by saying you don't need to, and again, he's been saying for years, I don't know what the tricky words are. I don't know what the is, but I mean, to me, he's been saying they're never going to sell any Bitcoin. Whether he's said those exact words or not, that's been my takeaway. Let's see what people think on that. Quick. Because I'll tell you, for as much as a couple of people said they fact checked and they never found those exact words, I would answer yes to this. I feel like that's what he's said. And I don't know what series of semantics he used to get around that if he didn't ever say it, because I feel like not only has he said it, I feel like he said it 100 times, 1,000 times. While you're doing that, just a couple quick, I'm just going to let you guys know. Bitmine wanted to get 5% of the world's supply of Ethereum. This is Tom Lee's Ethereum treasury company. This is the counterpart to MicroStrategy or Strategy. Strategy's holding Bitcoin. Bitmine's holding Ethereum. They are almost done. They are very close to 5% of the world's supply of Ethereum. So he put this out to let everybody know, hey, our Ethereum purchases are going to go down pretty dramatically. The firm has recently been acquiring about 100,000 Ethereum per week. That means they could hit their 5% of all Ethereum goal in 6 weeks. But what he's saying, I want to find what the point of this is. If I can't find it, I'll just tell you.
102. I was going to rate that 102. We got 102 likes, Tom.
All right.
But thanks, but it means nothing. It's like, I don't know what you ever watched Whose Line Is It Anyway?
Yes.
10,000 points for what? I don't know.
So essentially what they're going to switch to doing, Bitmine, when they get 5% of the world's supply of Ethereum, they are going to focus on staking, creating cash flow, and doing stock buybacks.
Tom, I'm sneaking out. I got to go. I'll see you guys.
All right, George, thanks for sticking around extra. Have a great weekend. So my point is, this company, unlike MicroStrategy, which is going to borrow money forever and increase their Bitcoin forever, this company had a goal, and they got there at warp speed. This is a new company. So within months, they will own 5% of the world's Ethereum. Then they're going to hold, they're going to stake it, they're going to generate profits, they're going to buy back their stock, making your shares of their stock more valuable. That's their concept. Also, your shares of stock will become more valuable as Ethereum increases in price, if Ethereum increases in price. So it's a two-pronged attack at increasing shareholder value. That's what this company is doing. I do own shares of this company. I'm not a huge fan of Ethereum, but I gotta confess, Tom Lee's enthusiasm is contagious, and I like this business model. So I think even if Ethereum does okay, I like what he's doing here. So I do own some of this, just for the record. While we're on Tom Lee being a bull, Bitcoin ending May above 76,000 would confirm a new bull market. That from Tom Lee. And there is a reason that he said this. So we are on the same page, because I've been talking for some time about the fact that I think we are on the brink of turning this from a bear market into a bull market. Let me get rid of all of this nonsense and go to the monthly. This is Bitcoin's monthly chart. This was March. It was green. This was April. It was green. This is May. If it is green at the end of May, Bitcoin since inception has never had 3 green months in the middle of a bear market. I think only one time in the middle of a bear market did it ever have 2 green months in a row. So that's a rarity. 3 is non-existent. So I think this is the critical month. I think there's a few price targets. He's saying if we're green at all, if it stays above 76, we are in a bull market, because, on the monthly, this is a lot of time. So this downtrend, I'm going to go back to the weekly. Right, this was these are 1 week, each one of these. Oh, sorry. Really, this was kind of a double top, but even if you go from, really, here's where we started going sideways, right here. Do that on me. Got too much junk on this. My point is, that's a long way down. I know, and then a little bit sideways. I know everybody feels like we're in a bear market. This is a bear market. A lot of people feel like this is phase 1. And, crypto winter is ahead. I have been saying for a long time, I don't believe that. I think that 60,000 was the bottom. I think there's a very small chance we could possibly retest 60,000. I don't think we're going to. I think this was crypto winter. And if we can confirm, if we can do what Tom Lee just said, and even just stay sideways for this month, I think I think we're going to do more than that. Then I think we're back in a bull market, and bull markets are vicious. So I'm going to run that poll, because I don't think that's a popular opinion. I think most people feel like there's more pain to come, but let's see what you guys think. Do you think that Michael Saylor said strategy will not sell any Bitcoin? So 37% of you think yes, he has said that at some point, and 63%, now it's 60-40. So pretty close. I don't know what the answer is. They say that technically he's never said those exact words. but it sure feels like he's communicated that message to me. But again, I'm not uptight about them selling. I think if they sell to pay dividends, but they're still a net buyer every single month from now on, I don't think that's a problem at all. That'd be my opinion. Ripple, JP Morgan settles first cross-border tokenized treasury redemption on the XRP ledger. The pilot, run with Ondo Finance and MasterCard, processed the redemption of Ondo's OUSG tokenized treasury fund in under 5 seconds. So that's good news for XRP, for Ripple, for whatever it's worth. JP Morgan is the big dog of all financial companies. And then I'm going to get to this because this is what I kind of alluded to, and I didn't really talk about it at length. I believe the stock market has changed fundamentally, and there is no going back. You've heard all these terms, big pharma. Well, there was big pharma existed as a term because a lot of the biggest companies in the world were pharmaceutical companies. Big oil. Exxon was the biggest company in the world for like 20 years. And they weren't alone. Many of the top 20 companies were oil companies. Big banking. Big bank, too big to fail. Many of the biggest companies in the world have always been financial institutions. The newcomer is big tech. So it's been around a while. Big tech was a good number of the top 20 companies. Well, there are not 4 things anymore. There's one. It's tech. And I just want to show you, this is what's going on right now. The biggest company in the world, $5 trillion tech. By the way, they're also in AI. Number 2, Google Tech, also in AI. They're almost at $5 trillion. NVIDIA's over $5 trillion. Apple, number 3, tech and AI. Microsoft, number 4, tech and AI. Amazon, number 5, tech and AI. By the way, Microsoft and Amazon spent over 20 years trading places on and off in this number 1 spot. The only other company to take that spot was just recently NVIDIA. So that ended a 20-year dominance of Microsoft and Apple, and Google is threatening to take it away from NVIDIA just as fast as NVIDIA got it. Taiwanese Semiconductor, big tech, part of the AI supply chain. Broadcom, Avgo, big tech, part of the AI supply chain. Those are your $2 billion companies. The first 7 biggest companies in the world are all big tech AI related. Number 8, and the only outlier, and I almost have a hard time counting this, Saudi Aramco. Right? They used to rival for number 1. This is a Saudi oil company. Yes, they have a massive amount of oil. It's worth $1.7 trillion. That's number 8. Okay, so there's some big oil. That's 1. Tesla, tech. Meta, tech. Samsung, tech. They also build the same chips that Micron builds. They are a massive part of the AI supply chain. 10 out of the top 11 companies in the world are tech companies, almost all of which are heavily involved in AI. That dominance has never existed in the history of the stock market. We've never seen anything that even slightly resembles this. Finally, at number 12, Walmart, retail. Berkshire Hathaway, that's a conglomerate. They had their turn as the largest company in the world before Apple and Microsoft, and in between Exxon, Berkshire Hathaway took that title for a little bit. Eli Lilly, you got to go to number 14 before we get to our first big pharma. So big pharma, it's an $845 billion company. I'm not saying it's not big. It's just, it's the biggest one, and it's in 14th place now. Micron. By the way, on last week's stream, I talked about Micron, and they were the 19th biggest company in the world. 1 week later, they're the 15th biggest company in the world. 842. And guess what? They're probably going to pass Eli Lilly in one more trading day. And then I would say Berkshire and Walmart, and they're going to compete with Samsung because that's going up too. So I would say they'll probably be at number 12 pretty soon. SK Hynix. They do what Micron Technology does. So Samsung, Micron, and SK Hynix, those are the only three companies in the world that make that chip necessary for the NVIDIA chip. So they're three of the 16 biggest companies in the world. And I don't think they're done running. JP Morgan. I just got through telling you they're the big dog in finance. You got to get to number 17 on the list before we get to a bank or financial institution. There has never been a time in the history of the stock market where that is true. So you got to go to 14 to get to a big pharma. You got to go to 17 to get to a bank or financial institution. And if you don't count Saudi Aramco, AMD, AI Tech, right? AMD is a direct competitor to NVIDIA. That's number 18. Intel, AI Tech, chip company. You got to go to number 22, ExxonMobil, before you get to a big oil company. Big oil is not so big anymore. NVIDIA is almost 10 times the size of ExxonMobil. Tech. Here's some more big pharma. Retail, financial. But we're at number 27. This stock market, no, there's never been a time where one thing was basically the top 15 for the most part. And these are all the trillion-dollar companies in the world. The only trillion-dollar company, there's two that aren't a tech AI company, Saudi Aramco and Walmart. Well, and now Berkshire Hathaway. So I just want to show you how the world used to work. I got to find it. I don't know what happens to my tabs. Give me 30 seconds. I'm going to show you when all this happened because this is what's going on. Okay. Top 10 market cap companies in the year 2010. Number 1, ExxonMobil, big oil. Number 1, $314 billion. NVIDIA is 12 times the size of that. In 20, this isn't in 1987. This is 2010. Apple, number 2, $209 billion. Well, Apple's now a $4 trillion company. Microsoft, approximately 260. So they got this in a little bit of a wacky order. Microsoft's now a $3 trillion company. So it's big oil, big tech, retail, Walmart, right? Berkshire Hathaway, they're a conglomerate. Shell, big oil. BP, big oil. Toyota, auto industry, big auto. China Petromedical, I don't even know what that is, I'll be honest. GE, retail. There's 2 out of the top 10. Microsoft and Apple. And we know those are 2 monster companies and they have been for ages. No other tech companies in the top 10. Now it's 9 out of 10. But here's where it really switched. This is 2019. And I picked 2019 because this is pre that thing that happened in March of 2020. If everybody remembers, the virus that they won't let me say. But you guys know what I'm talking about. Drop in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. In March of 2020. And then the world shut down. Before the world shut down, the biggest company in the world was $900 billion. That was Microsoft at number 1. Amazon. So you can see we've got a shift going here. There's a lot more tech. Apple, 896. There's zero $0 trillion companies. Apple, Amazon, Alphabet. So these still are hanging around. Berkshire Hathaway dropped out. Facebook is now Meta. Alibaba is now much smaller. Tencent is much smaller. JP Morgan Chase, financial. So there were $0 trillion companies. Every single one of the top 4 companies is pretty much worth, not quite, but all these companies put together 7 years later. Right? 900 billion, 875 billion, 800 billion. Then it drops way down to about 500. 5th place was 500 billion. And 5th place now is 3 trillion. That's not inflation. 500 billion didn't turn into 3 trillion because of inflation. To put it in perspective, you got to go down to number 25. So what used to be number 5 would now be number 25. What used to be number 1 would now be number 14. There has been a consolidation of money and wealth. Big tech isn't even the right word. Mega cap stock isn't the right word. These are so much disproportionately larger than everything else. And what I'm saying is a company like Micron at $842 billion, that's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar company. Even though it's up 777% in a year, it's not done running. A company like AMD, that's going to be a multi-trillion-dollar company. I'm not talking someday over the rainbow. I'm talking in the next 6 to 24 months. Intel is going to be a multi-trillion-dollar company. Right? These are... ExxonMobil went from 400 billion to 600 billion in 16 years. A lot of these companies are making that kind of jump in a week. Right? It's not that ExxonMobil's gotten smaller. They're 50% bigger than they used to be. But now instead of being the biggest company in the world, they're the 22nd biggest company in the world. Oracle. Don't be surprised if Oracle doesn't run. Now, Oracle could go either way. I know there's a lot of stuff going on here with Oracle. I just think there's going to be the haves and the have-nots. It's a stock picker's market. is my point. The S&P 500, putting your money in the S&P 500, 480 of those companies don't even matter anymore. There's 20 big companies, and I'm not saying they're all good investments. For instance, Walmart and Berkshire Hathaway, 2 years from now, they're probably going to be 10 or 15 or 20%, maybe 30% bigger than this. They're not going to be 11 and 12 anymore at that point. They're probably going to be 19 and 20. These two have been in the top 10 for decades and decades and decades. They're just going to fall and fall and fall because more and more tech companies are getting gigantic. And that's why, to circle all the way back around, when I look at an IREN, it's not that hard for me to imagine. Here, 480 megawatts in 2026. Annual run rate of $3.7 billion that they're on track for. 1.2 megawatts. That's 730 megawatt growth. That's for 2027. 2028 plus 5 gigawatts. Now that plus matters because I think that's more like 2030. 5 gigawatts. They're going to go, remember, they're getting what? $3 billion from 60 megawatts. This is almost 100 times more than that of capacity. So if they do something that slightly resembles this, it is not hard to imagine them as a $200 billion company or a $300 or $400 billion company. That's my thought process. Now, in the middle, who knows? The market is fickle, so they could go down before they go up. Oh, okay. So Alexander is saying, was this a bad time to sell a covered call on IREN for $90 strike on June 12th? I mean, I think you're safe. That's just my opinion, Alexander. I think you're safe on that. I think that's good money. So, you probably got a nice premium for that. It's only basically a month away. I think you're going to be okay. And the one thing I would say is, even if it pops over 90 at some point in the middle, I'd wait for it because as long as it doesn't close over 90, you're good. So, good luck. I think you're going to make money on that. I don't think that was bad timing, and I don't think that was a bad strike point to pick. But who knows? We could wake up and all of a sudden the thing runs to 100. This is the tough part of this. These things run in unbelievable streaks now. Dave saying the S&P is being carried by big tech. Yeah, I mean, it's the top 7 companies make up. They'll make up 40% of the S&P 500 within a year. The top 7 out of 500 companies. And somebody's mentioning BitDR. BitDR popped, and then so I'm going way late, but that's okay. I want to finish up because we didn't show what happened this week. Here's this week. IREN was up 34% this week. So they were up 7.65% today. I thought that was a disappointment, but understand, running into earnings, they had 3 huge up days in a row. So it was a sell the news situation, and then it was a sell the news until people realized what the news was, and then it was like, wait a second. And I think there's more to come. I think the market's going to digest all of what we talked about over the weekend. I believe there's going to be a big push. So I think I think 60 was low. I thought this was when it would push to 70, but we'll see. If it doesn't, I'm not going anywhere. Riot up 30% this week. So I don't remember who it was. Somebody mentioned earlier that Riot's been on fire. Riot's been on fire. Keel up 29%, Hut 28%, CIFR 21%. Bitcoin was up 2% this week. But this group of companies, the Bitcoin mining, high performance computing, data center power companies, did extremely well. I think those that are focusing on data centers are doing better. We didn't talk about Riot, but they have an awful lot of stuff going on, and they've made some good progress. So I just want to show this to put this in perspective, because this is two things. This is a press release that came out a couple of days ago for Riot. This is a gigantic monster press release in one regard. In the other regard, you got to understand the time frame on this. So Terrestrial Energy and Riot Platforms launch collaboration to develop nuclear-powered large-scale data center projects. Will create a best-in-class pairing of nuclear and data centers to deploy multiple 390 megawatt IMSR plants. 390 megawatt plants. That's huge. I'm not aware of another nuclear company that's making these that large. Let me know if you know of one. The company that I have on my watch list that I may or may not buy, theirs are 77 megawatts. 390 is massive. But the rest of this is the 390 megawatts to represent 4 gigawatts of nuclear power capacity. So IREN's talking about adding 4 gigawatts of nuclear powered data centers. If they do that, then they are one of the winners. So we're trying to figure out who's going to be the winners, who's going to be the losers, who's are going to do okay. If they do this, they will be one of the winners. But I want to point something out that is crucial. The very last sentence of this press release: Terrestrial Energy is engaged with regulators, suppliers, industrial partners, and energy end users to build, license, and commission the first IMSR plants in the early 2030s. So they're talking about adding 4 gigawatts of capacity, but 0.0% of those 4 gigawatts are going to come online for the next 3.5 to 4 years. This is a someday over the rainbow press release. I think it's very encouraging. I think this is going to happen, whether it happens with Riot or Riot and Terrestrial. Terrestrial could go out of business between now and then. For your information, Terrestrial Energy is a publicly traded company. This is a $961 million company. They have no revenue, obviously, therefore no profit. They have no working product yet. So all of that sounds awesome on paper, but understand this is with a micro cap company whose product doesn't exist yet. So I take both sides of this. I do think this is very encouraging, but they're going to do a lot of things in between now and the time they do this. This is not what's next for them. But that's great. Let them work on filling up 2026 through 2030. And if this can come online, in the 3 or 4 years after that, I mean, can these guys scale up to 8 or 10 gigawatts? That's going to make them one of the then they're going to be a $200, $300, $400, $500 billion company. But we'll see. Obviously, none of that's done yet. So that's all speculation at this point. Ethan's saying Riot are absolutely killing it. Mara made some progress also. yes, Mara they had, I don't have the press release because it was last week, but they did take a big step to accelerate themselves getting into this business. They bought an existing facility, instead of greenfield starting from scratch and building for the next 5 years, they just cut 3 years out of the process. So that's why I hold out hope. I do think Marathon is going to do some things. It will be the first one I sell when and if the opportunity arises, because not because I think they're going to fail, but I own so many of these stocks. I have to have some exit strategy to take profits, and I'm going to go from my lowest conviction first, on up the ladder. So doesn't mean I think they're going to fail. I think I will sell my Marathon for a nice gain when I sell it, but I do think they'll lag behind their competitors, and I'm less confident, in a 5-year window. For IREN, I think they just keep going and going and going. We'll see with Riot. They've really turned things around a lot. TeraWulf, they've been heavy into the AI compute side of things. CIFR, they've been heavy into it. Formerly Bitfarms, now Keel has said they're 100% data centers now, no more Bitcoin mining. So there's a lot of them out there. We'll see what happens. Then let's just go to, this is May month to date. So this only adds one extra day that wasn't on the other chart. Now you got Riot up 40%, IREN 34, Keel 31, HUT 30. So you'll notice all 4 of those are heavy into data centers. BitDeer is making me scratch my head. So BitDeer is something I'm going to spend the next maybe 2 or 3 weeks deciding, is this a stock I'm going to keep or do I need to move on? I love BitDeer's story. I think that, they're going places. But again, I'm so concentrated in this area, and there's so many other stocks that I think with a high level of conviction that are about to make big moves. Do I really want to wait? What if it takes BitDeer another year to make their move? I've waited. If this was the only company I had in this sector, I would say, well, okay, I'll wait for it. But I own some Riot. When I say some, I own a Riot, IREN, Keel. I don't own HUT. I own BitDeer. I own Microstrategy. I own CleanSpark, Marathon. I mean, that's a lot. I'm very heavy into this, so I have to have some exit strategy to start getting into some of these other things that I think are next. Now, I'm going to stay in IREN because I think IREN is they're what is today and they're what's next. So that's great. I feel like Riot could be that same thing. BitDeer, I'm losing my patience. Year to date, this will show you a little bit better. BitDeer's up 20% year to date. HUT's up 114%. TeraWulf's up 104%. Riot's up 90%. Keel 69%. IREN 62%. Core 57%. I mean, a lot of these companies, this is in a year where Bitcoin's down 8%. ABTC is the only one in the red. And if you look at 2025, so this is 2026. If you look at 2025, I held BitDeer for this whole time. So I just endured a year of down 48%. Now I'm going on my next year. So at some point, the opportunity cost of holding a stock that might end up being a big winner, I've got enough I'm covered in this sector, I guess is my point. So if I sell BitDeer and they turn out to be a big winner, I guess so be it. But I'm considering selling them and deploying that money in a diversified way in other sectors. None of that's financial advice. That's just my opinion. That's what I'm thinking about doing. That's the thought process I'm going through. And Ken has a good point. You can always roll your covered calls. Well, that's all my thoughts for today. We got through a lot more. I stuck around for an extra hour. I hope you guys enjoyed. And I want to thank everybody that smashed the like button. I want to thank everyone who subscribed to the channel. If you're not subscribed, you can smash the like button and subscribe on the way out. And a special thanks, of course, to all of our members. So for everybody, have a fantastic weekend. For the members, I will see you guys Tuesday after the market closes. And for everybody else, we are here every Friday after the market closes. I hope you come back and join us. Have a great weekend, everybody.